Greetings fellow Intertubians, my name is spirodotgeek and you're watching Linux Ronin. A few days ago a bind bug was announced. We have found that it is pretty much vulnerable to every version of Bind9 from Bind 9.1 through to 9.97. The fixes in Bind 997 P2 and P3. So the word was that this is basically vulnerable for every version. It will result in a denial of service, and apparently a pretty trivial packet can trigger it, and it wasn't long before it was actually being exploited out in the wild. There's no workaround for it, so you need to patch to get around it. This article here actually says a successful attack will leave a trace in the server logs. The command any T key should appear as long as admins have query log enabled. So this is interesting because the quotes coming out of it said many of our bugs are limited in scope or affect only users having a particular set of configuration choices. This particular CVE does not fall into that category. Almost all unpatched bind servers are potentially vulnerable. The context makes it sound like he was being generous there, and everything else seems to imply that all unpatched bind servers are vulnerable. We know of no configuration workarounds. So as we say, the versions affected here: 9.10 to 9.8, 9.90 to 997 P1. So P2 and up. Fix the problem. From what I've seen, CentOS 6 uses Bind 9.8.2. I haven't seen an announcement for an update for CentOS 6, but I have seen updates for 5 and 7 come through on their announce list. So I don't know if that's because they have already done something before that, or they, upstream vendor Red Hat, have already done something, and it is no longer, that particular version isn't vulnerable, or maybe they just haven't fixed it yet. I don't know, but we had, and if we look here on IRC's webpage, there were a few vulnerabilities for Bind over the last few years, and at my last job we just got to the point where we just didn't trust the releases coming out of CentOS, but whether they were out of date, whether they were taking too, typically the CentOS versions are the safe editions, right? So we, being an ISP, we needed to have, and DNS was a major part of our business, and so we just rolled all our own packages. Well, I rolled all our own packages. We had our own private repo that I would just, every time a new release came out of ISC, I'd just rebuild, and we just redistribute then and there. So yeah. So looking here, as I said, CentOS 6 uses 9.8.2. 9.8.x was end of life to September 2014. Debian 7 just released an update that I haven't looked at the release notes for, but this seems to have been pretty recent, so it's possible that they have patched it, and so Debian 7 runs 9.8.4. I don't run anything newer than that. I also don't run any CentOS 7 boxes, so I don't know what version they're running. Basically, patch now, patch all the things.